Now in this video we're going to have a look at some basic maintenance for your sewing machine, and I've also got lots of questions that you've been sending through as well, so let's address some of those first. Like, how often do you actually have to clean your sewing machine? I'd say it's recommended every 9 hours of sewing, but I don't know about you, but I don't time myself while I'm sewing. So I'd say every 3 times you need to change your bobbin thread, that'd be a good time to actually clean out your machine. It's ever so quick. We'll go through all of that in just a second. Carol put a post on Facebook saying when she's not using a sewing machine, should she leave the needle up or the needle down? I'd not even thought about this, to be honest. My needle's normally left up. Because that's the way it stops on my machine. So I've done a little bit of research for you, and apparently the reason it's recommended that you leave your needle up is because if you leave the presser foot down, so therefore the needle down, and the feed dogs up, then the presser feet can cause pressure on the feed dogs. Not heard of that one before, I'm not too sure about that. But if you are unsure, or maybe you're leaving your sewing machine, your poor old sewing machine, unattended for a long time, then leave the presser foot up, but turn the hand wheel on your sewing machine until the needle goes down, and then the presser feet should, the feed dogs should automatically go down as well. So that covers it, if you like. So Brenda says, do you oil your machine? Some machines you do, some machines you don't. So you'll have to have a look at your manufacturer's instructions. Basically, if your machine came with a little tube of oil, it probably needs oiling. And if you're not sure where to oil, I'll give you an idea on my machine later on, but that will be in your instruction booklet. How to clean the feed dogs, we will do that in just a second, Jackie. How often do you service? Now, it's recommended that you service once a year, but of course this depends on how many times you use your sewing machine within that year. So I would recommend, if you're using a machine every day or it's very frequent, you do have it serviced once a year. Do your own basic maintenance that I'll show you in just a second, just to keep on top of things. But a technician will basically take all of the frame off your sewing machine and take a look at what's going on with the parts on the inside that you can't access. So there'll be the wear of the borings, the timing, the gears, feed dog alignments. It's going to oil any moving parts, calibrate the bobbin case tension, and basically give it a good old clean. They should really look at timing as well. That's one thing that you can't touch on your sewing machine. Sudha says, how can you tell if your machine needs servicing? Skipped stitches are a good indication of a problem that you have with the build-up of lint inside your machine, or that something's not working quite well, or maybe your timing isn't right on the machine. But for the most part, I think that having your sewing machine serviced is preventative rather than curing. If you do have skipped stitches on your machine, clean it, change your needle again, try using different types of thread. If you're still getting skipped or uneven stitches, that may be the time when you take your machine into a technician. Right, so those are the questions that I've had so far. You can post any more questions that you have, either requests for projects or more technical questions or techniques, underneath the video on YouTube, or you can join me on my Facebook page, which is Debbie Shaw Sewing. The details will be at the bottom of your screen. So meanwhile, let's take the plate off our sewing machine and I'll show you your basic maintenance and how you're going to clean it. The first thing that we need to do when you're cleaning your machine at all is to switch it off, preferably to unplug it, because we don't want the risk of any accidents while you're messing around inside the machine. So on the outside of your machine, all you're going to do is to take a minimally damp cloth and wipe it clean. Don't use any sprays, don't use anything that's very, very wet, because we don't want any moisture getting inside the machine. Underneath here is the needle plate or the throat plate. Now this is my Genoma machine. Most of your top loading machines will be exactly the same, so they may look a little bit different, but this is basically what you're going to do. So there'll be 2 screws either side, so loosen those off a bit, and then you'll be able to unscrew those with your fingers. Don't lose these, because they are very difficult to replace. Not the kind of thing that you can just go down to a hardware store and pick up. So we take those off. I'm also going to take my sewing machine foot off. So again, you may need to unscrew this. Your foot may look a little bit different to my foot unless you've got this machine, but basically you'll take the foot off, and if your machine has an ankle, you could maybe take that off and just give it a bit of a clean while you're there as well. So off you come. And this is also a good time to replace your needle. If you find that your machine starts to get a little bit noisy, or your needle is leaving punch holes in your fabric, that's a good time to change it. May as well do it while we're here anyhow. Then we're going to lift off this plate. Off you come. Use something smaller to take that off. There we go. The plate itself, just give that a dust or a wipe down at the back. Here's my bobbin, so this is going to come out. And that's just pulled out the bobbin case as well. And you can see I've actually been quilting today, so I know that there's going to be a lot of lint building up on here. So when I was saying about the 3 bobbin rule, every 3rd bobbin you should change this. If I'm quilting, so I'm using wadding or batting, I may do that a little bit often, because those type of fabrics, including fleece, are the ones that really will distribute lint inside your machine. They're not going to damage your machine, but they can stop the moving parts working properly. So that again is maybe where you're going to get skip stitches. So just take this and give it a good old brush around. You may have had a brush with your sewing machine. I'm using an old paintbrush, so whatever you need. But whatever you do, don't blow inside the machine, because again you're introducing moisture. This is a metal plate on the bottom of the, there we go, on the hook. Down here is a magnet. So that's what actually holds this hook in place, just in case you're wondering. Now look around here. Again, I'm not blowing in there. I'm literally scooping this up like it's candy floss. It tends to build up really, really quickly. So any of the lint that you can see, give it a poke around. If you do want to, oh look at all that. Look at the muck in here. If you do want to give it a blast of air, then you can buy like dry spray airs that don't include any moisture. And those are the kind of things that you'll use on cameras and keyboards and things like that. So wherever you can see, brush and pick it up. There's so much in here, wow. Right. Now we mentioned oil on your machine previously. In the centre, let me just find a quick unpick to point with. This was the magnet. Sometimes these are actually loose, so do make sure they stay in place. In the middle here, that looks like lint, and it's all squashy and grey. It's actually a wick. So if you do oil your machine, you put a tiny little drop of oil right in there, and basically that's all you need to do. If you have a look in your instruction manual, you may see other points inside here that you'd need to place oil, but that's the main bit just then. That'll distribute the oil underneath all of the working parts around here. Now with your feed dogs, make sure that you brush in between. If there's lots of lint and gunk building up in between here, then your feed dogs aren't going to be doing their job of feeding. And if it builds up to the top of the feed dogs, they will become slide dogs. So it's best to just keep this nice and clean. I could spend a lot of time doing this because I've got a lot of dirt inside here. But for now, that'll be fine. Right, now when you put this back in again, the section at the top here, the flat bit, is the bit that goes underneath the feed dog. So make sure you drop this in the right way round. On some sewing machines, you'll find a little dot here. I've got a red dot, and that'll line up with a dot on the bobbin holder. And there's also a little spring at the side here, and a little, like a nug that's sticking out. That needs to go just on this side. There's a spring inside here as well. And it should easily drop in. Don't force this in. It'll click into place and drop there very, very easily. And then we're going to put this back on again. The screws are actually shaped so they have this like V shape at the top. So when you put these in, tighten them by hand first of all, and that will help the throat plate or the needle plate back into alignment. So basically when you put it all back together again, everything should just drop in place. If it doesn't go in place, if this isn't fitting properly, something's going on underneath there, please don't force it, because you can damage your machine in that case. Right, time for a new needle. Now with domestic sewing machines, the needles are flat usually on the back, so they can only go in the needle housing in one direction. So we'll put the new needle inside here and screw that tight. I'm trying to do this so that you can see it, but I'm not being very successful. There we go. So I'll tighten that by hand and then with my screwdriver. I'll show you that closer up in just a second. My foot goes back on and then we're all ready to sew. So I hope that's been a helpful tutorial for you. I've had lots more questions about tension, but there's so much to talk about with tension. I thought we'd have that in a whole new video. So keep your questions coming through and I'll see you soon.